We were halfway down the alley when my sat phone buzzed. Northern Syria, hot as hell, full of noise and dust. The kind of place where a vibrating vest usually means bad news. I was focused on the handoff, a fixer and his grandson clinging tight behind me, both scared stiff. I almost ignored it. You don't answer calls in the middle of an evac, ever. But something about it made me grab the phone anyway. St. Luke's Hospital, the voice said. Female, American, tight. Are you Mason Grant's father? I stopped walking, just froze. Yes. This is ICU. Your son's been admitted. Critical condition. Quick note before we dive deeper. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. The air punched out of me. I ducked behind a crumbling wall and waved my second to keep moving. What happened? She hesitated. I caught it, that pause. He was brought in by a man named Charles Blanton. Says he's your ex-wife's husband. Claimed he fell? I asked, already hearing the lie. Yes, a playground accident, jungle gym fall. But the injuries aren't consistent. Multiple trauma points, fractured arm, bruised ribs, possible concussion, old marks too. Did the doctor log it? Yes, but here it came. But the man who brought him in is related to a city official. His brother is deputy mayor. He's been hovering around, asking questions. Listen to me, I said, gripping the phone so hard my fingers ached. Chain of custody on everything. Don't clean him up until you've got full documentation. You understand? Yes, sir. I've already started, but I don't know how long I can hold. You hold, I cut her off. You hold that line until I land. I ended the call and looked over at my second in command, already watching me with concern. He was a good man, ex-SEAL, quiet, sharp. Your lead now, I told him, handing over the evac folder. Protocol breach. I'm cashing in that favor with Wren. Get me wheels and a jet. He didn't ask questions, just nodded and moved. 12 minutes later, I was strapped into a private transport heading west, across a war zone, over oceans, through customs I wasn't supposed to skip. Didn't care. I left everything behind, gear, op, command chain, and flew straight into something worse than a firefight. A home I hadn't stepped foot in since the ink dried on those custody papers. A place where my son was supposed to be safe, and now he was fighting to stay alive. I hit Tampa 16 hours later. No sleep. One carry-on bag, mostly empty. Black folder under my arm that hadn't seen daylight since I left the agency. The sky was gray, airport quiet. My ride was already waiting. Silver sedan, windows tinted, driver didn't speak. Good, I wasn't in the mood. St. Luke's was 10 minutes from the runway. They brought me in through the service entrance, the kind they use for VIPs or bodies. Inside, it smelled like bleach and fear. A nurse met me by the elevator, short, maybe mid-30s, hair tied back so tight it looked painful. No greeting, just a manila file held out in front of her like a shield. This way, she said. We walked fast, no small talk. Her badge read C. Mercer, probably not her real name. I respected that. Room 318. I stepped inside and stopped cold. Mason was in the bed, eyes closed, skin pale against the white sheets. Wires ran from both arms, chest, head. His face was swollen, lip cracked, dried blood at the corner. His left arm was propped on a foam wedge, wrapped and braced like it had been shattered, not broken. Then I saw the bruise, dark, deep, right across his ribs, round, like a boot, not a child's foot, not a fall. I felt something shift inside me, like steel twisting. Nurse Mercer came around to the other side and pulled the blanket back. We logged everything, photos, doctor's notes, time-stamped. Nobody touched anything until it was all documented. There was a welt across his hip, clean line, angled, belt, not random, not accidental. I clenched my jaw so hard my molars felt like they might crack. Jesus Christ. And here, she said, gently lifting the edge of his hairline, swelling near his left ear, purple and raised. Someone had hit him in the head, hard. I turned to the wall and slammed my fist into it. Drywall cracked, knuckles split. She didn't flinch. I saved his clothes, she said. I knew they'd try to clean it all up. They're in a sealed bag, chain of custody signed by the attending nurse and 2 floor techs. Blood on the collar, his watch snapped in half. And this. She handed me a Ziploc. Inside was a receipt, dated 2 hours before he was brought in. Gas station, 1 county over. The name on the card matched the husband. "Where's the report?" I asked. Her mouth tightened. "That's the problem." She pulled out her phone and tapped a recording. Static, then a man's voice. "This isn't a case, Cheryl. He fell. Let it go." "I've logged the injuries," her voice said, steady. "They don't match the story. You keep pushing this, you're going to get someone in trouble." Pause. "You mean me?" Another pause. "My boss won't be happy. Just drop it, all right?" I looked at her. "His boss?" "Your ex-wife's brother-in-law." Of course it was. I took a deep breath, counted to 5. It didn't help. "Anybody else hear that call?" She nodded. "I had it on speaker. My charge nurse can vouch. It's been duplicated. Files on a flash drive taped under the nurse's station, just in case. Smart. Too smart for someone who was supposed to look the other way." I opened my folder and slid a single card across the counter. Unmarked, black emboss. "If anything happens to you, you call that number. Use my name." She looked at it, didn't touch it. "I didn't do this for you," she said. "I know, but you're in it now." We stood there a moment, just the machines clicking and my son breathing shallow. She finally said, "He asked for you when he came in." Even through the pain, first thing he said was, "Where's my dad?" That nearly dropped me. I stepped closer to the bed, placed a hand on Mason's good arm, and kept my voice low. "I'm here now, bud. I'm not going anywhere." I hadn't even stepped back from Mason's bed when the door creaked open behind me. I didn't have to turn to know who it was. I could smell her perfume before I heard the heels. A soft voice floated in like we hadn't skipped a single moment of the last 5 years. "Can we talk before this gets out of hand?" I turned. She stood in the doorway like she still had rights to the room. Hair perfect, nails done, eyes red but not puffy, crocodile wet, the kind of cry you practice. I stepped between her and the bed. "Talk?" I said. "Now you want to talk?" She glanced toward Mason, then back at me. "This doesn't have to be a war." "You already picked your side," I said, pulling my phone from my back pocket. "So sit tight. I've got calls to make." Her face twitched. Not fear, but recognition. Like she just realized what time it was. I walked past her and hit the first number. "Carson, it's me. You're on retainer again. I want full custody refiled today. I've got hospital records, photos, time-stamped chain of evidence, and a nurse willing to testify." Before she could open her mouth, I was on the next call. "Yeah, Adam, I'm greenlighting it. You've got the files. I'll confirm everything on record. No aliases, no off-the-record quotes. This time, it sticks." That got her attention. She took a step forward. "You're bringing the press into this?" Her voice cracked, but her eyes were still calculating. I ignored her. Call 3. "Hey, it's me. I'm cashing it in. Don't say you didn't know me. I need a sit-down tonight. No names, no locations. Bring your badge if you still have it." Click. That was the only warning she got. I turned back to her. Her hands were clenched now, wedding ring catching the overhead light like it had something to say. "You don't know what you're doing," she snapped, voice sharper now. "You're going to ruin everything." I stepped closer, kept my voice low. "You have no idea what I just started." She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man standing in front of her. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she thought I'd stay quiet like before. Sign the papers, nod in court, pretend from a distance. Not this time. She pivoted fast, heels clicking like gunshots down the hallway. That perfume followed her out. Sweet, thick, artificial. Smelled like a warning now. I didn't chase her. I turned back to the nurse. Mercer didn't say a word. Just handed me a folded sheet of paper from her front pocket. 3 names, no explanation, no titles. Just numbers, written in clean print. "They've seen too much," she said. "But they've been scared. Until now." I took the paper, slid it into the folder with the rest. "They still scared?" She met my eyes. "Not if you're serious." I looked at Mason. His fingers twitched, barely there, but it was enough. "I'm dead serious," I said. I stepped into the hallway, found an empty waiting room, and locked the door behind me. Pulled out my phone. First name on the nurse's list was the journalist, Adam Langston. He picked up on the second ring. "You serious this time?" he asked. No hello. "I'm standing in a hospital room," I said. "My kid's in a brace with boot-shaped bruises on his ribs. I've got photo evidence, medical reports, time-stamped recordings. and a nurse ready to testify. He didn't speak for a few seconds, then, "I've been waiting for someone like you. I've got sealed reports dating back 8 years, medical neglect, CPS visits scrubbed from the system, transcripts of 911 calls that were accidentally deleted from the logs. It all goes back to the Blanton family. How many names?" "Too many," he said, "and all protected. Judges, detectives, school officials, all wrapped tight around your ex's new husband." "Send it all," I said. "I'll confirm what I can, and I'll go on record." "Copy that," he said, and hung up. Second call was harder. Her name wasn't saved in my phone, never had been. Just 10 digits burned into memory from another life. I dialed. "Yeah," she answered, groggy but alert. "It's me." Silence. "I need a meet," I said. "Tonight, secure spot, I'll talk, I'll name names, I'll sign whatever you need." She didn't ask who or why, just gave me a location and time. "Don't be late." I wasn't. I left the lot and headed straight downtown. Streets were still empty, streetlights blinking yellow, morning not fully here yet. The city felt like it was holding its breath. Beneath City Hall, deep in the old underground garage, I found him leaning against a steel column, pressed uniform, crease sharp, silver eagle on his collar, coffee in one hand, a folder in the other. Retired Colonel James Weller, my former father-in-law. He didn't waste time. "I'm not here to slow you down," he said, voice low but firm. "I'm here to make sure you don't miss." He handed me the file, photos, sworn testimony. An affidavit signed by a junior officer detailing a domestic call to the Blanton house that was buried 2 years ago. Said he was ordered to mark it unfounded. Said the orders came from higher up. The photos showed bruises, same belt pattern as Mason's. I looked up at the colonel. "Why now?" I asked. His jaw flexed. "Because I didn't raise my daughter to let this happen, and I sure as hell didn't serve 30 years for this system to rot from the inside out." We got in my car and pulled out fast. No detours, no texts, no warning. We parked in front of the federal building at exactly 7:42 a.m. Walked straight through the front doors, shoulder to shoulder. The security guys recognized him, gave us a nod, and a free pass through the scanner. Inside, we were met by 2 agents in suits. Not local, good sign. I dropped everything on the table, folders, recordings, and reports. Colonel Weller followed with his own file, no hesitation. "You'll want to start with the chain of suppression," he told them. "Then go to the prior incident. Use the affidavit to crack internal comms. If you dig even a little, you'll find the link between the brother-in-law and the former police chief." One of the agents asked, "Are you prepared to testify under oath?" I answered first. "Already signed the waiver. I'm ready." Weller followed. "Same." The lead agent flipped through a few pages, then gave a single nod to his partner. "This is enough. We'll start immediate intake." By 9 a.m., the files were logged, evidence bagged and tagged, and federal subpoenas were already printing. It was happening. No more whispers. No more cover. No more "let it go" from backroom cops. We stepped outside into the daylight, blinking. The colonel looked like he hadn't moved a muscle, but I saw it, that shift in his shoulders, that look veterans get when they know the next shot's not theirs to fire. But they sure aimed it. I lit a cigarette I didn't even want and watched people walking by like the world hadn't just tilted under their feet. Then I tossed it, climbed in the car, and headed back to the hospital. By the time I got back to the hospital, the wheels were already turning. First hit came fast. The detective who told Nurse Mercer to drop it didn't even get a warning. Internal Affairs walked him out of his own precinct in front of his squad. No cuffs, not yet, but the look on his face told me he knew what was coming. That afternoon, while I sat next to Mason's bed, phone buzzed again. Unmarked number. I picked up. "Target one's gone," the voice said. "Took 2 cells, a burner, and a black duffel. Left town 2 hours before the subpoenas hit. My ex's new husband. Coward didn't even stop to ask if Mason would make it. I didn't panic. We'd anticipated this." The colonel's contact started tracking his last tower ping. Meanwhile, I turned my attention to someone who hadn't run. His stepmother. Not my ex, her husband's new wife. Mason's stepmother. She was the one who brought Mason to the ER, claimed he fell, cried to the staff, said she found him like that. According to hospital logs, she signed him in at 10:36 p.m., but security footage from a gas station down the road, time-stamped 8/12, showed her car parked half a block from the scene. Too early to find him like that, too close to deny it. Then came the break. An anonymous tip. Call came into a DOJ tip line, encrypted, untraceable. Checked the second drawer in her bedroom dresser, locked, back left. Federal agents executed the warrant that night. Inside, one pair of kids' sneakers, small, blood-stained, tucked behind an old jewelry box. They logged everything, swabbed it, matched the size. Prosecutor confirmed it. Mason's. That was enough for the next name on the list, the chief of police, her brother, same one who'd buried reports, same one who'd made friendly calls to the hospital asking about the nurse. They didn't kick the door, didn't need to. These guys weren't local PD. They came quiet, calm, no sirens, no flashbangs. Just 3 unmarked Suburbans and a warrant the size of a damn Bible. I stood across the street under a busted street lamp and watched it happen. Neighbors stood outside in their robes, watching too, mouths open, whispering like church gossip. Some were filming, others just stared like they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Chief Raymond Blanton came out in a hoodie, hands behind his back, escorted down his perfect stone walkway like a perp from one of his own raids. One of the agents turned and gave me a nod. I didn't nod back, just stood there, arms crossed, while the man who'd spent years hiding behind a badge finally got thrown in the back seat like he belonged there. Someone behind me whispered, "Is that really him?" Another said, "Thought he was untouchable." Not anymore. I didn't wait around for them to load up. I walked back to the car, slow and steady. By sunrise, it was everywhere. Local stations, state feeds, even a headline spot on a national affiliate. Police chief arrested in child abuse cover-up, tied to prominent family. They ran the footage on loop, Raymond Blanton in cuffs, his head down like that'd make him smaller. I sat in the hospital cafeteria, coffee going cold in front of me, phone blowing up. Reporters, lawyers, even an old neighbor asking if it was really true. Then came the text from my ex. "You happy now?" That was it. No apology, no denial, just blame. I didn't reply. I got up, walked out to the parking lot where the colonel was waiting in his car. No words, just handed him a sealed envelope. Inside was everything that hadn't gone public yet. Timestamps, transcripts, names, call logs, video clips, the full audio of the stepmother saying, "He'll survive, but maybe he'll learn his place." He flipped through just enough to understand. By noon, he stood behind a podium outside the federal courthouse in full dress uniform, chest full of medals, boots shined like glass, face stone cold. Cameras packed in tight. Reporters swarmed the tape line. He raised his hand for quiet. Didn't need a microphone. His voice hit like a hammer. I served my country for over 30 years. I wore the uniform with pride. And I believed, like many of you, that the badge, any badge, stood for justice. But no badge, no name, and no bloodline will shield anyone from the law in this city. Not anymore. Flashes went off. Someone gasped. He held up the envelope I gave him, high enough for the cameras to catch it. "This isn't politics," he said. "It's truth, it's proof, and it's the beginning." Right then, I spotted him, standing near the back of the crowd, ball cap pulled low, hoodie zipped halfway. Charles Blanton, my ex's husband. So much for missing. His face was ghost white, hands stuffed in his pockets, shoulders hunched like a kicked dog. Probably thought staying out of sight would protect him. But even from 30 feet away, I could see the sweat. The cameras hadn't caught him yet, but the colonel had. He finished his statement, stepped down, and walked right past him. Didn't say a word, just glanced once. Charles flinched. He was trapped. Couldn't run without drawing eyes. Couldn't hide anymore. He tried to slip away as the press swarmed in, but 2 agents in plainclothes followed him. Close. Quiet. I didn't follow. Didn't need to. Because now the noose was tightening. And he knew it. Back at the hospital, I found Mason still sleeping, chest rising steady, color coming back to his face. I pulled a chair up next to him, let the noise of the world fall away. They held the arraignment 2 days later. By then, the courthouse might as well have been a damn stadium. I got there early, still in the same boots I wore to the hospital. Didn't shave. Inside, every seat was taken. Reporters with notepads, local officials who hadn't said a damn word during the worst of it, and half the police department pretending they'd never looked the other way. Some of them were sweating through their collars. Others tried to act bored, like this wasn't about to blow the lid off a decade of silence. The judge came in. Federal bench, no nonsense. She looked tired but focused. She knew the weight in the room. The prosecutor wasted no time. "Your Honor," she said, voice sharp and clear, "we begin with Exhibit A, an audio file captured at the scene." They played Nurse Mercer's call. The detective's voice came through the speakers, smug, flat, irritated. "Let it go. It's not a case." A few people in the gallery shifted in their seats. "Why not?" The nurse's voice pushed back. "You keep poking this, someone's going to get hurt." "You mean me?" "My boss won't be happy." The silence that followed in that courtroom was brutal, the kind that eats the air. Then came Exhibit B. I already knew what it was. I'd heard it a dozen times by now. Still made my jaw clench. It was the stepmother's voice, soft, almost sing-song. "He'll survive, but maybe he'll learn his place." The judge went stiff. Her eyes shot toward the defense table. Behind me, someone gasped. Someone else whispered, "Jesus Christ!" Next came the paper trail. One by one, the prosecutor dropped bombshells, redacted CPS visits, deleted 911 transcripts, payoffs from a slush fund connected to a city construction firm, owned by the ex's brother-in-law, suppressed police reports with matching belt mark injuries from years back. Same address, same story. He fell. They played video of my son on the hospital gurney, semi-conscious, hooked to monitors. Then they showed the time-stamped gas station footage of the stepmother's car near the playground 2 hours before the incident. By the time they reached the third box of evidence, the defense team had stopped objecting, just sat there, dead silent. My ex's stepmother, her real name on the indictment now, stared straight ahead, mouth twitching, still pretending this was all a misunderstanding. The judge looked down at her with something close to disgust. "We'll proceed with all counts," she said. "Full trial. Jury selection begins immediately." But it didn't take long. By the end of the week, the court found her guilty on every count. Felony child abuse, obstruction, perjury, conspiracy. My ex's brother, the city official who used to brag about running things, lost his pension and faced federal charges for interference and evidence tampering. The colonel sat in the front row every day, never missed a minute. After the verdict, the press swarmed the courthouse steps, cameras flashing, mics stretching over the barricades. They waited for a quote, a soundbite, something clean to put under a headline. I walked right past them. The courthouse door shut behind me, but the calls didn't stop. Reporters, lawyers, relatives I hadn't heard from in years. I let them all ring out, left every voicemail untouched. I wasn't interested in interviews or wrap-up stories. This wasn't closure, it was aftermath. The silence that followed wasn't peace, it was clarity. Mason came home 2 days later, still sore, but walking on his own. He slept more, ate slowly, flinched less when someone dropped a spoon. He didn't ask where his mother was, didn't ask why the guest room stayed locked, just settled in like he'd finally exhaled. I kept my voice soft around him, never asked questions he wasn't ready to answer. I gave him space, but stayed close. No sudden moves, no raised voices, just steady ground. One afternoon, he came into the kitchen while I was washing dishes, tugged my sleeve with one small hand. "Dad," he said, "you didn't let them get away with it." I turned off the faucet, looked down at him, didn't speak. Just grabbed a glass from the counter, filled it with orange juice, and handed it to him. He smiled. I ruffled his hair. That was enough. The colonel started visiting once a week. No war stories, no lectures. Just sat at the kitchen table with a cup of black coffee and watched the world outside the window. He said the indictments would keep coming. New subpoenas, fresh charges, internal audits stacking up behind closed doors. I believed him. One of the detectives, the youngest on the old chief's squad, sent me a message through a mutual contact. I didn't know. I only sent one line back. "You didn't want to." My ex filed to move out of state a month later. Arizona, some cousin's house. Claimed she needed a fresh start. I didn't fight it. The court didn't blink. Gave me full custody without a single objection. I kept my job remote. Laptop, secure lines, same clearance. Didn't leave the house unless it was for groceries or Mason's checkups. I didn't need much, just walls I could trust. I never told Mason everything. No courtroom details, no news coverage. Just enough truth for him to understand he was safe. He had already lived through more than a kid should. Sometimes justice doesn't kick the door in screaming. Sometimes it walks in quiet, locks every damn door behind it, and leaves the key on your table. That was enough for me.